The habits most likely to send your engine to the rebuild shop are not the obvious ones, like skipping oil changes or ignoring warning lights. They are the everyday behaviors that feel completely harmless and are done by millions of drivers who consider themselves responsible vehicle owners. Yet automotive engineers and lubrication scientists have documented that 10 specific driving and maintenance habits cause cumulative internal engine damage that eventually crosses the threshold requiring a $5,000 to $12,000 rebuild or replacement. According to independent engine failure analysis by automotive engineers and oil analysis laboratories, the majority of premature engine failures in vehicles under 200,000 miles are traceable not to single catastrophic events, but to the compounding effect of minor damage accumulated through repeated everyday habits that individually seem insignificant. A single cold rev costs almost nothing in engine life. 10,000 cold revs over 5 years of daily driving removes measurable material from bearing surfaces. A single short trip with the engine never reaching full temperature causes minor oil contamination. 300 short trips per year over 4 years produces oil contamination levels that independent analysis shows accelerating bearing wear significantly. The damage is invisible, cumulative and silent until the day a connecting rod bearing fails, a timing chain skips, or oil pressure drops below the threshold for safe operation. By then, the cost is $5,000 minimum, and often more. Keep watching, because I'm going to walk through all 10 habits, explain the engineering reason each causes damage, and tell you exactly how to change each one before the bill arrives. Hey, if you like this kind of straight-to-the-point content with no BS, help me out here. Subscribe to the channel right now. It takes 2 seconds and guarantees you won't miss any tips that could save you some serious cash. Habit 1 is revving the engine immediately after a cold start. It feels satisfying, clears the throat of the engine, and some drivers believe it warms the car up faster. What's actually happening is that metal components that sat overnight with minimal oil film are spinning at elevated RPM before oil pressure has fully developed and before oil film thickness on bearing surfaces has reached its protective threshold. Tribology research confirms that 70 to 80% of total engine wear occurs during cold starts and warm-up periods, and elevated RPM during this window multiplies the wear rate per second by the RPM increase. The correct behavior is to start the engine and allow it to idle for 15 to 30 seconds before driving, then drive gently for 5 to 10 minutes. Habit 2 is running the engine consistently below a quarter tank of fuel. Modern fuel-injected vehicles use electric fuel pumps submerged in the fuel tank. These pumps rely on the surrounding fuel for cooling. When the fuel level drops near empty regularly, the pump operates partially or fully uncooled, running hotter with each low fuel episode. Fuel pump replacement costs $300 to $700 depending on vehicle, but the behavior also risks pulling debris that settles to the bottom of the tank through the fuel system, potentially clogging injectors. Habit 3 is ignoring the oil level between changes. Your owner's manual specifies oil changes at set intervals, but it does not guarantee that the oil level remains adequate between those intervals. All gasoline engines consume small amounts of oil through normal operation, and some modern engines consume significantly more. An engine operating a quart low on oil has reduced oil pressure, reduced oil film thickness on bearings, and higher oil temperatures because the smaller volume of oil absorbs the same amount of heat from the engine. 1 quart low sounds minor, but represents 15 to 25% less oil depending on total capacity. Check the oil level monthly. Habit 4 is not allowing the engine to warm up before aggressive driving. Driving gently until the temperature gauge reaches normal operating position is not optional for engine longevity, it is an engineering requirement. Metal components have different thermal expansion rates, and the designed clearances between pistons and cylinder walls, between journal surfaces and bearings, and in the valve train are calibrated for operating temperature. Driving hard before the engine is warm forces components operating with cold tolerances to handle loads they were designed to handle only at operating clearances. Habit 5 is using the wrong oil viscosity. Your owner's manual specifies a viscosity grade for a reason. Modern engines with variable valve timing systems, turbocharger bearings, and precisely toleranced clearances are engineered around specific oil film thicknesses. Using a thicker oil than specified means slower circulation, delayed pressure buildup on cold starts, and potential oil starvation in tight clearances, including VVT actuators. Using thinner oil than specified means insufficient film thickness under high load and high temperature conditions. Always use the exact viscosity specified on the door jamb sticker or in the owner's manual. Habit 6 is ignoring the coolant maintenance schedule. Most drivers change their oil religiously and never think about coolant. Coolant has 2 service lives running simultaneously. The mileage-based service life relates to coolant condition degradation. The time-based service life relates to corrosion inhibitor depletion, which happens whether you drive or not. 2-year-old coolant with depleted inhibitors allows electrochemical corrosion inside the engine block, cylinder head, water pump, heater core, and radiator, even if the vehicle has low mileage. This corrosion creates debris that circulates through the cooling system, scoring the water pump impeller, clogging the heater core, and causing slow coolant leaks that eventually result in overheating. Flush and replace coolant every 2 years, regardless of mileage. Habit 7 is driving with a known small oil leak without fixing it. Small oil leaks feel manageable because you can just add oil to compensate. What you're actually doing is accepting chronic oil contamination of engine bay components, including belts, mounts, and sensors, and tolerating the risk that the leak worsens suddenly without warning. A valve cover gasket seeping slightly at 70,000 miles can become a significant leak by 90,000 miles, dropping enough oil to cause a low-pressure warning during a highway drive. Fix small leaks when they're small and inexpensive rather than waiting for a larger emergency. Habit 8 is short-trip driving without periodic longer drives to compensate. Vehicles driven primarily on trips under 5 miles never fully warm up. The engine computer runs a cold enrichment fuel mixture during warm-up that introduces fuel dilution into the crankcase oil. Without reaching full operating temperature, this fuel doesn't evaporate and exit through the PCV system. Acid from combustion byproducts doesn't neutralize properly. Moisture from combustion condensation doesn't evaporate. Short-trip vehicles accumulate contaminated oil faster than mileage-based change intervals account for, requiring either more frequent oil changes or periodic longer drives of 15 to 20 minutes at operating temperature to burn off accumulated contamination. Habit 9 is aggressive driving immediately after starting on cold mornings in winter. This combines the worst aspects of cold start stress with the additional factor of thick, cold oil moving slowly through restricted passages in sub-freezing temperatures. In temperatures below 20 degrees Fahrenheit, oil viscosity increases dramatically, and the time required for full oil pressure to develop throughout the engine extends beyond the standard 30 seconds assumed at moderate temperatures. Hard acceleration in the first mile on a cold winter morning is one of the highest wear events a modern engine experiences. Habit 10 is extending oil change intervals beyond the manufacturer's specification for severe service conditions. Many drivers read their owner's manual, see 10,000-mile oil change intervals, and follow that interval regardless of their actual driving conditions. The owner's manual specifies 2 maintenance schedules, normal service and severe service. Severe service is defined as frequent short trips under 5 miles, driving in extreme temperatures, towing or hauling heavy loads, stop-and-go city traffic, or dusty conditions. Most urban drivers who do short city trips in temperature extremes are operating under severe service conditions and should be using severe service intervals, typically half the normal interval. Using the normal interval under severe service conditions means oil that reaches its contamination limit before you change it, with the final miles of each interval running on increasingly degraded oil. Now let me explain the financial math that makes changing these habits worthwhile. A $5,000 engine rebuild or replacement on a vehicle with 150,000 miles represents roughly 3 years of monthly payments on a replacement vehicle if financed, plus the disruption and risk of an unplanned breakdown. The cost to change these 10 habits is primarily time and modest additional maintenance expense. Shorter oil change intervals on a turbocharged engine cost approximately $80 additional per year. Monthly oil level checks cost nothing. Fixing small oil leaks when they're small costs $200 to $400 versus potential engine damage from a major leak. Coolant service every 2 years costs $60 to $100 at a shop or $30 DIY. These maintenance investments total perhaps $200 to $300 per year, above what you'd spend ignoring the habits. Over 5 years, that's $1,500 in additional maintenance, preventing a $5,000 to $12,000 repair. The return on that investment is 3 to 8 times the cost. More important than the financial calculation is the operating principle. Internal engine damage is cumulative and invisible. Each of these 10 habits creates small damage that individually doesn't trigger a failure. Together, over years of repeated exposure, they accumulate wear that either causes premature failure or ensures that when a failure does occur, the engine has already consumed most of its service life. The drivers who never need engine rebuilds on vehicles they keep to 200,000 miles aren't lucky. They're consistent. They warmed up before driving hard. They changed oil on the severe service schedule. They fixed small leaks. They checked the oil between changes. They never let the tank run empty. These aren't complicated practices. They're habits applied consistently over years, and consistency is the entire difference between an engine that reaches 200,000 miles intact and one that needs rebuilding at 120,000.